Now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for staying tuned to the second hour of the show. In this hour, we're going to be speaking with Braschler about the secrets of time travel. But don't forget, Just Energy Radio is brought to you by SoulHealer.com and the Institute of Applied Energetics. At the Institute of Applied Energetics, you can learn to become a medical intuitive, energy medicine practitioner, or certified intuitive counselor. All of this training is available for you out of the comfort of your own home. So go to www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com for more information. And also check out the Just Energy Radio webpage. That's www.justenergyradio.com, where you can go and check out our over 5 years of show archives. And while you're there, please do sign up for our newsletter to keep you informed of all the excellent programming that we have coming up. Anyway, let me tell you about our next guest, Braschler, and get him on the air, and we're going to find out how we can move through time. So it says, I am a writer who has previously edited and published both newspapers and magazines, including community newspapers in Alaska, Oregon, and Wyoming. I have worked in the book publishing business and have led workshops in the U.S. and the U.K., including the Omega Institute for Holistic Studies in Rhinebeck, New York. I have served on the headquarters staff of the Theosophical Society in America in Illinois. I am also involved in pet rescue and am a certified massage therapist with special training in pet therapy. I have studied energy healing with Dolores Kreiger and Dora Kunz, who have helped develop Therapeutic Touch. So please welcome to Just Energy Radio, Braschler. Hey, Von, how are you?
Fine. Hi, Dr. Rita.
Well, time travel. We've never done a show on that, but I have to ask you, okay, so when I was thinking about time travel, I was kind of thinking, the Wayback Machine or H.G. Wells, some kind of vehicle or something, a little booth that you go into and you just, go back in time, forward in time. But I guess that's not really what you're talking about, or not what we're going to be talking about today.
No, I got an email, a Facebook response from somebody in Canada, and it was a picture of my new book, 7 Secrets of Time Travel, and it was inside of a machine of some sort. And the caption said, I was going to buy a DeLorean, but I got this book instead. So it has no flux capacitor. Darn.
I know. So how did you become interested, and we'll just stay with the time travel concept, and just so we develop what that really means, but how did you become interested in this whole concept of moving through time?
It's always fascinated me more than anything, and other things that would fascinate me really blurred and merged with time, and I could see it was all in my head the same. When I was 12 years old, I decided with some neighborhood friends that I was going to go on a berry-picking bus because I could go out of town and go to this place where they told me that behind where you pick the berries, there was a little river with a beautiful swimming area, and there were tires on trees, and you could play and you could eat berries, and then they'll blow the horn to go home, and you didn't have to work or anything. So, of course, I took the lazy approach, and I ate berries for half an hour, and then I went swimming. But I got very, very sick, and I went to the bus driver and said, I need to go home. And he said, well, we go home at the end of the day. You have to wait. I was just doubled over with stomach cramps. So I said, I don't think I can wait that long. My friend said, well, don't do anything silly. Well, I could see there was a train track right in front of the berry field, and I knew that the train went through my town, near my house, I was thinking, so I just started walking. And I just started walking, and I remember I rounded the bend. I hadn't been walking but a couple minutes, and suddenly it was in front of my house. And it's a good thing because my appendix were about to burst.
Oh, my God.
And here's the funny thing. It took me a long time to realize that the train tracks don't stop in front of my house. They don't come anywhere near my house. So, given that I was suddenly there, I think I traveled through space and time. And I think this is the way a lot of us do it. We have an accident, a car crash, or some emergency, and we leave our body, our higher consciousness, our energy body just leaves us, much as it does in our dreams. And we roam, we travel freely, because beyond the limitations of this physical world is a world of spirit and energy where there's limitless possibilities. There's time is fluid, time is flexible. You can bend time, you can go places quickly. And people who have had these kind of experiences where time seems to stand still at a moment when their life is threatened and they seem to step outside of themselves, well, they do. They step outside of themselves.
So is that like when you watch a show on TV or a movie and something imminent is going to happen to the main character or whatever, and it just seems like, as the bullet is traveling across the screen, it's in slow motion, and all of this stuff happens until finally they get hit?
Right, just like Colonel Steve Austin. He seems to run very fast, but he seems to run very slow, right?
Well, that's because he has the music,
Oh, he has that music. Yes, right. Yeah, I know, but there's a lot of people that have there was another famous book on time slips. Time gaps. We can't account for time. We'll be walking or talking or doing something, and suddenly, where'd the last hour go? Have no conscious recollection. Or people will seem to be in two places at once, and they say, that was odd, Or suddenly you're there somewhere talking to someone, and suddenly you're back, So I think that it does happen from time to time, almost inadvertently, that people will step outside themselves in a state of higher consciousness. Their energy body will leave them. Remember, our thoughts travel at the speed of light. So our thoughts can time travel. Our physical body, not so much.
My husband and I are determined, or we have decided that we have a time vortex in our garage.
Ooh.
Because we have garage talks, and we'll go out there just for like 5 minutes. We're just going to sit out here for 10 minutes just for a quick smoke. No one heard me say that, but just for a quick smoke. And and an hour and a half later, it's like we emerge, and it's like, dang.
Yeah, exactly. If we don't hold time together with our attention, as Castaneda used to like to say, hold the world together with your attention, it doesn't exist. Time as we normally conceive of it it just doesn't exist. We think of it as linear, and every moment is the same, and every moment isn't the same. Sometimes it goes by very quickly, sometimes not at all. It just drags and drags. It's dependent on what did Einstein call it, the reference frame of the observer, and it's like, you experience time different than I do, and I don't experience it the same from moment to moment myself.
So is it really dependent on the observer?
Yes, absolutely. We control time, and there are certain restrictions in this physical world, this level of creation, if you will, that make it very difficult. We are limited by the restrictions of the physical world, where things are very rigid and fixed. There's very little change. Things just don't change, and once they're physical, and outside of that, the other level of creation, of course, is the world of spirit and energy, where everything is absolutely limitless in possibilities. There, the laws of physics don't exist. We don't live instant to instant or in the now as we do in the physical world, but there is great fluidity to move throughout time and space.
it seems like people are, or society is just fascinated with the concept of time, measuring time. I mean, when you go back even to our far distant ancestors, and I'm going to just use the Maya as an example because, they say that they were phenomenal record keepers and timekeepers. But it goes back even further than that, when you talk about, Stonehenge or, some of these other astronomical calendars that have been produced to record and measure time, and it's.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But what did they measure? They measured light. They measured the sunlight, the coming and going of the planets. They measured the only thing that really exists on our Earth plane really is solar time. So they were measuring, with sundials and these kind of devices. The movement of the celestial objects, and with relation to the sunlight and the shortest day of the year and the longest day of the year, extremely important to the ancients, and they lived according to that. They lived within the laws of nature. When the day was at an end, the sun went down, they slept. We try to stretch time and cheat time and pretend it really, is something well within our control. We have no idea how limited it is to live a physical existence. Not to be, put a damper on it, but most of us, just fool ourselves with our Franklin day planners and our atomic timepieces. You can't really make more out of the day. The day is what the day is in this physical world. But we look at other examples outside of our mundane, gross world. We look at the shamanic traditions, and we look at Native American dream walkers and spirit walkers. We look at samadhi mystics, rishis, bodhisattvas, people who go into deep meditation and seemingly leave their body and experience timelessness or time shifts, and going forward, backward in time, in an energy body. And it does seem that if you take this approach, you can time travel. You don't need the machine of H.G. Wells.
So with that ability, is it? I mean, what would we use that? Why would we care? I mean, there's the I like to say the looky-loo aspect about. Well,
Did you want to go forward and look in the windows?
Well,
and
no,
how the fashions change?
Not so much about the future. I'll come back to the future, but the looky-loo aspect about knowing your past life. Even though there's been 75,000 Cleopatras reincarnated, and 20,000 Alexander the Great, and
no one was ever just a scrub woman or something, or
I was an elephant pooper scooper.
Yeah.
I was. Yeah. I was like, well, this is good.
Well, I remember being just kind of like a slave boy, and that wasn't very much fun. But, it is, part of who you are. And I think to answer your question, you really need to know who you are to understand what you're all about now. You get a little bit hung up, sure, about who you were and that person, but that person was just, you have to separate the personality from the ongoing, enduring spirit, And we come into the world, you got to think, I believe, with some kind of reason, raison d'etre. We've got a mission in life. What is that? Why are we here? It's like the ultimate question that we have. And I think to answer that question, you have to understand how you got here, and where you're going. So I think it's very important to look in on yourself. But I think more than that, I think, it's like, now what the shaman would do, or, the mystic in the East, they would go back in time for insight into conditions that would affect their people today. So, I mean, really, you go backward or forward in time as a witness, as a perfect observer, and you come back with insights. Knowledge is power.
See, I like the word you used, perfect observer, because I think that for movement through time to be meaningful and not just be a flight of our imagination, you need to come at it from that place.
I think so. And, what we're probably looking for, all of us, is some kind of, improvement or perfection, or, for the soul to evolve, for ourselves to grow to some degree. So for that to happen, you need these kind of insights, and you need to be a perfect observer, detached. And what's better detachment than going, through time as a perfect observer, without arms, without legs, without feet, without a mouth, without your 5 physical senses, just with the awareness that you would have in a higher consciousness, leaving the body as an energy vehicle.
Is this something? Let me kind of get some framework here. So, is this something that you have as an active practice? Can I talk to you from that perspective, or is this,
I don't do it
or
all
is
the
this
time.
more like a research thing? Well, I mean, because it really shifts the focus of the kind of questions
I know. Well, I guess to answer the question, both. And I had my own experiences and my own practice, and then I thought, well, I need to look in on this. So I studied, time from the viewpoint of different philosophers and religious theologians, and of course scientists and philosophers, and then mystics, and what physics has said and is saying about time. And there's a tremendous convergence that time, as we experience it, is energy. Mm-hmm. And moreover, it's the opportunity of the moment. We live instant to instant. So while I've compiled some exercises that go with each of the 7 chapters on the 7 secrets, these are kind of tried and true exercises, very simple meditation exercises, but they're a little different too, because the exercises are deep meditation exercises. They're active meditation exercises. They do require a person to really focus and to leave the body. These are astral voyages. But I was going to say that really, these are Asia techniques. In the East, they've been doing this for centuries. And so have some of the Native American shamans. Who do this. So these are totally reliable exercises and approaches toward time travel, and I think they're very legitimate.
Well, sometimes, and I'll just share this with you so that you'll understand if I start snickering. Sometimes when I'm working with someone, their guides start getting blabby and they crack jokes, and then I have to laugh, and so you made the comment about, well, you can just leave your body behind, and their comment back was, and then go find a newer one.
Go find a newer one, yeah.
But I'm assuming that you have to go back to yours after you would venture outside of the body.
And that's not hard. And a lot of people, when they're considering what would be involved with out-of-body experiences, are very worried that they're going to get lost out there, or bump into bad things, or that they can't easily get back, And I can understand that. I think when I started developing the exercises, I had some concerns, but I think it's totally safe. It's totally safe because the way that it works, it's based on the karmic law of attraction. think of thought forms and how our thoughts travel, because we're really talking about using the higher consciousness to leave you as part of you, but part of you that is eternal and pure energy, and that's the part of you that can travel. Your higher consciousness can travel very, very quickly, and it can go very directly to someone or something. So things that are close to you, like you, part of you, like consider how the Native Americans go about shamanic soul retrieval. It is very easy for them to find the missing part, because it's magnetic attraction, and it's the same with a loved one, a family member, someone close to you. It is magnetic attraction. Coming back to your body, once again, is magnetic attraction. This is the easiest part of traveling like this. The harder would be, say, going into the future, to see something that, you can be very specific what you're looking for, but you have no frame of reference. You have no karmic. You have very little, let's say, karmic magnetic attraction to that. You say, I want to find me in the future. That is possible. But for most of us, it's difficult. It's easier to go into the past to find you and explore your past lives. And I think that's the way most people first encounter time travel.
And so, how would this compare to something like doing a past life regression? Are we talking about kind of similar principles, or just really different?
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, you could use it for that purpose. You could use it for exploring past lives yourself. And why would you have someone exploring your past lives? They weren't there. They have no magnetic attraction to that. They're just kind of comforting you, holding your hand in effect. This is the same thing when you return. When you return to normal consciousness in your body, and you stand up, and you need to sort it out. No one can do it for you. You were there. You saw it. It's very, very personal. This is your spirit leaving the body.
Mhm. Well, I know one of the things that I refer some of my clients to hypnotherapists that do past life regression, because there is some past life trauma, which is why I send them there in the first place.
Well,
which,
for that reason.
I feel like they need somebody to hold their hand, because they need somebody to help walk them through the trauma.
Sure.
But then there's the whole looky-loo thing. Or you just want to know, who was I?
Yeah. Well, I was in a room once where someone was regressing someone. They were taking them into their past lives, and it was pretty upsetting to me, because I was just sitting there, and I was there. I was going with them, and wow, this is very personal stuff,
So you were going to their past life with them? Yeah, no, that's why I don't do hypnotherapy. I train to do hypnotherapy, but like you, I go right into the past life of my client, and then I'm pretty much useless. From a therapeutic point of view.
I would much prefer that people learn to do this on their own, if possible.
Mhm.
Same with healing. Mm-hmm.
So you've kind of mentioned the future. One of the big questions that I have with that whole comment, and I'd like to hear your opinion on it, is the whole notion of the future not being determined. Do you believe that the future, we are fated to experience some things, or is the future liquid, and depending on choices we make in the moment will take us to another potential future?
I think there are infinite possibilities. I think we're on a course, but the road can turn. Because Well, let's look at how most people think of the course of events. We think of the course of events like very linear, but this is how we view time, generally speaking. You're here, you're standing at one end of the string, and then someone else is farther down the string. That might be you tomorrow. And then you can see way down the road, the railroad tracks are getting smaller and smaller. And that's way down the road, and then of course it kind of rolls around the earth and you can't see it so well. And but we think of like everything as being very linear and very continuous and progressive and accumulative. But things just don't work that way. There is that tendency. People always forget this too about astrology. It's like any kind of the divination arts. These are the tendencies of how things are going to be. There are all kinds of variables involved here. And biggest of all is actual living the experience and reacting to it, and the opportunity of being involved. We are, of course, agents of change. So we will change things, but so the future isn't predestined. I even people other theosophists I know find some evidence that there's predetermination. And how could there possibly be predetermination? Outside this little mud ball that we live in, this gross, mundane world, is limitless potential. This is the great mixing bowl out there in the world of spirit and energy. Anything is possible. We step outside the moment, the present moment, this instant that we live in. We live just instant to instant. We think we're going through some great movie, but we're just looking at still shots. And we step outside that, and there's infinite possibilities of how things could be. So I don't think the future is set in stone at all.
Well, it just makes it be kind of weird, if you go forward in time, kind of what's the point if it's not, right. It's like, okay, so, well, according to my future travel, next Tuesday I'm going to win the lottery, which would be totally cool.
Done that. Boring.
But then next Tuesday comes and you don't win because time is fluid and you didn't do something that you needed to do in order to make that part manifest or whatever. I think you get my point.
And you think, well, what went wrong? You just around thinking, what went wrong? Well, it's not all wired straight like that. We just have this obsession as human beings that we could just measure everything and set everything and set the walls, and this is it. It goes up and down. It's 6 feet by 8 inches, and that's it. And it's like things just aren't that way. We like to control things. It's just not that easy to control things.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that we have the opportunity to attract things to us, based on, I really do believe in law of attraction principles, and I'm just going to say principles.
Right.
And so if that's how things are manifesting, because we're drawing them with that magnet to ourselves, both good and bad, it kind of depends on where we are in any moment, whether that's going to come to us or not.
Yeah. I think it all comes down to electromagnetic energy, basically.
See, you're on the right show.
Yeah.
Actually, today's been an energy show. In the first hour, we were talking about energy medicine, and now we're talking about using energy to move through time. So, see, cool show.
Yeah.
This was something that I was curious about that I think that listeners would be interested in, is you kind of mentioned that, time compresses and time expands. And so is that something that we can create some kind of control over? So I mean, I know we've all experienced it. You know, we have those days at work where time just flies right by, and then the days where every minute seems like an hour.
No, I know, and that's something. And I wish you had greater control. But I think to answer your question, the answer is yes. Once I started on this whole thing about time and really started realizing how much I could, in a sense, control it if I could understand it, that is to say, my perception of it, I find that I can't compress time and or expand it, and I've had examples both ways, you know. And
could you give an example? I think it would be appropriate.
Well, let's see, compressing time. You know, I used to have this newspaper on an island in Alaska, and it was all dependent on the fishing, so things got a little bit tight. And I got down to where it was basically me doing everything, setting the type, you know, finding the ads, taking the pictures, keeping the books. And I would be so exhausted on the seventh day because I would have to paste together the pages, and it would all have to be straight, and I'd have to have it done by 5 in the morning to ship it out to the next town where they had the presses. And sometimes I would get like so far behind, I'd be looking at like hours of work, and I'd have like 90 minutes. And I found that I could just do it incredibly fast if I needed to. It seemed like I could almost make something of more of the time than I would normally experience it. So can you manipulate time? I think the answer would be through perception. There is a degree to which you can manipulate time. Another instance was when I was traveling across Montana in a snowstorm, and I was in a Ford Bronco, and gosh, you know, I didn't realize how wide that state is. And I was entering the state, and it was like, I don't know, 3 in the morning or something, and I was trying to get across it because, well, you know, it was really cold, and snow was blowing, and at that time there were no stations. There were no filling stations open. It's not like now you could like go and put in your credit card and get gas. You know, the station was either open or it was closed. And it was closed. And anyway, I had no gas, and I had to keep going. I drove all the way across Montana in a blizzard, and I had lots and lots of gas. And it's like, I just don't understand how that happens. It's like, it's just amazing. But it seems like focusing on the time constraints that I needed to stretch this out, I seem to have done that.
So what was your experience? I mean, did you kind of, and I'm not sure this would be the correct way, but I think you'll understand where I'm going, kind of disassociate from the issue? It's kind of like, no, that's just going to be, that's just how it is, and kind of attract the next open gas station to you, so you were able to get there based on what you had?
Like my friend that showed me how to, you know, like manifest parking spaces and stand in front of the mirror and make her hair longer or shorter. It was very incredible. But I understand what you're saying, but it's not like I made the stations appear. I just made kind of do with the situation and expanded. I got from here to there. Wherever here to there was, from the one side of the state to the other side of the state, in an amazing short amount of time, with what amounted to vapors in my gas tank. But
and I think that's what I was kind of saying, you know, just kind of bridging, you know, kind of like making your own little wormhole in time-space.
Well, that's it. I think you really, really nailed it here. I mean, everyone's looking for the wormhole to travel forward and backward in space. The wormhole may well be within our own mind, you know. I mean, it's not such a far-out idea. When I traveled across Montana, I found that I had to get way beyond the person sitting behind the wheel. I had to somehow become one with the car. I had to be one with the gas. I had to be one with the road. It's kind of hard to explain it, but there was a disassociation where I became not just this person. I'm not sure I could quite explain where it was, but it was something like a very altered state of consciousness.
But that's kind of cool. I've had that happen several times, not with gas, but definitely on the road where I have this long trip and I'll just, say to myself, okay, well, I want to be, in such and such a place by this time, which if you go by the speed limit, would definitely not be that time. And even though I wasn't like totally speeding, I still made the time that I had projected out there.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's it. You've done it. See, so that's manipulating time and space.
Woohoo!
You are a master of time and space, Dr. Rita.
Wait, where do I get my badge?
Oh,
Master of time and space.
You get to meet Ziggy.
Huh? Little decoder ring? Come on.
Sure. Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to start doing this, I know you have some exercises in your book, which I thought the exercises were great because they're essential for, where you're coming from. But for the listeners, if they wanted to try, a first step just to kind of play around with it, what would be something that they could do, just by what we're talking about here?
Well, I think that you have to kind of forget what you've learned about meditation. And that sounds kind of cruel, but it's like it's really not focusing on a dot or a note that's played, with a bell or something. It is really detaching yourself from your physical sensations. And what I always urge people to do is find a very safe and comfortable, secluded place where they can recline. I always recommend something like the yoga dead man pose, where you're absolutely on your back, spread out, comfortable as could be, and you need to tune out all the external distractions as best you can, and the internal thoughts and words need to cease. And what I always tell people is you need to form a picture in your mind. You need to set this thing up. You need the intent of what you're going to do and where you're going to go. And you need to form that in a picture. And you form the picture of where you're going to go and what you're going to look for. And you don't need to know how many miles it is or anything. It's like when you throw a ball across a distance, you don't know how many feet it is, but it gets there exactly right. Isn't that amazing? And it's the same thing here. You just need the picture. You need to know where's the destination. You don't need to know geographically where it is or in time and space. You don't need to know any more particulars than the picture. So you form the picture in your head, and then you tuck it deep in the back of your mind, if you will. You plant that picture, and you hold it, and then you go deep into a meditation where it ends where no words, you're just looking at a blank screen, and you program yourself that when you reach the blank screen, that picture is going to appear on the screen, and that's where you're going to go. You kind of preset it, you set it up, and it takes emotional energy. It takes meditation, of course, and it takes focused intent and power of the will. And it's really quite that simple. It is really basic yoga meditation techniques that I use, not unlike those in some shamanic traditions. And it is very, very simple. It's very, very easy. It's been tested. I've tested it myself in workshops with people who come from very diverse backgrounds, some of whom think it's impossible to go outside the body with with their consciousness. They just think that's just impossible, and yet they do it. And they do it very well, and they master it very quickly, Anyone can learn these techniques. They're not hard.
Cool. One thing that I think people are curious about, when you're doing something like this, do you end up going unconscious or become unaware of what's going on? I remember, and I don't even remember the name of the character, but there was like a cartoon character, or maybe it's a superhero or something, that was how his, hero guy superpower was, is that he astral travels. And,
wow.
Yeah, it was really cool, and so like he would be laying on the sofa, and his little astral body would come out, and he could walk through walls. He was kind of a ghost. Maybe it was, I don't remember. I mean, I just remember this guy, but the impression that I got was that he was, unconscious. And so when we try to do this, and when we actually astral travel out of the body, is our physical body in an unconscious place? Can somebody come up and take advantage of us while we're off doing something else in a past life?
It's a really good point, and that's why I suggest to people that they be safe and secluded, where some people is not going to jump on top of you or take your wallet or something. You need to feel safe enough to allow the spirit to come out to play. And, here's an example. When the tsunami hit southern India in Indonesia just a few years back, some of your listeners might remember that there were stories of traveling around picking up these yogi mystics who were in deep, deep meditation, and they were astral voyagers, and they actually picked them up and moved them somewhere, They were very, very, very into this meditation trance. So yes, you do get very involved. If you do this well, see, this is why I say you have to learn some of the meditation techniques. So many people have learned to meditate at a very low level, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then you're always going to be self-conscious of the air conditioner going or the the sound of children playing outside the window. As Krishnamurti said to people who complained that there were children, making too much noise for meditation, it's like that should be the least of your concerns. You need to just tune all of that out. And many people, when they do meditate, they just never reach that point. So they're kind of contemplating the power of the present moment. They're feeling the moment. And this is good, this is certainly a point of awareness, but they're also 1 foot into the physical world, very conscious that their nose is itching, So a lot of people will say to you, well, you're never going to be that completely involved in the meditation, that you are not aware of what's going on around you. That's very often true. But we're talking about a very deep meditation where you are oblivious to this.
And that's how deep you need to be to really have this whole thing move forward?
Yeah. You really have to do that. And when you asked at the outset of the show, do I do this all the time? Well, or do I do this often, or it's part of my practice? I used to do it. It was almost intoxicating that I would do this so frequently that I was like bilocating and totally oblivious of what was going on around me physically, and I wasn't in a safe place. I was just kind of like here and there at the same time, and that's dangerous. That's why to do this you really need to be in a safe, controlled environment. you don't necessarily have to have someone watching you or safeguarding you, but just find a quiet, safe, secluded place where your body is going to be perfectly comfortable.
Okay, so then answer me this, Vaughn. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you. All right. So when I first started dating my husband, I mean, the true story, there were multiple occasions. I mean, I'm a psychic, and I do ghost hunting stuff, so I'm very aware when there are spirits around me. And they do not have permission to come into my house, especially after dark.
How do you keep them out? I tried doing that, and I couldn't keep them out of my house.
I just have very good, you can be in anybody else's house, just not here because you scare me. You know what I mean?
Great.
And it's just kind of like this flat-out contract. Nope. Bye.
All right.
But periodically, my husband would show up. I mean, he's not dead, so it wasn't a ghost. Yeah. And it would be in the middle of the night, and I would be sleeping. He was working the night shift, and there would be this person standing in the doorway to the bedroom, scared the crap out of me. And till finally I figured out it was him, and then we had a conversation like, if you're going to come and check up on me, can you at least come sit at the side of the bed so I know it's you and not some spooky ghost that's standing in the doorway scaring the crap out of me? But, can people do that and not be, are we kind of talking about a similar mechanism but almost more on a conscious level?
Sure, absolutely. Well, one of my first teachers was the great psychic author Louis Gittner. And Louis, he would appear to people, in their dreams. But he was there, And finally, he said, "Well, I tell you what, I'll ring a bell, and it's me." It's very, very hard in the spirit body to ring a bell, and he found it very, very difficult. It took him several tries to do it. The physicality in an astral body is very, very difficult to master. Yeah, sure, absolutely. I understand what you're saying, and it's very, very similar to that. This is what we're talking about.
Because we're talking about you've been talking about going into this meditative place, and I don't think he was really meditating at work.
Really? Okay.
No.
Okay. But what are daydreams? What are daydreams? I'm not saying he daydreams at work either.
Well, no, I'm sure he could. That is possible.
Yeah. And I have some people who say that I come to them in their dreams and I say some helpful words. I try to do this when my friends are sick, but it is a little disconcerting when somebody just pops in front of you.
Stands in the doorway.
Sure. Hey, what's that?
And the reason I brought that up was, one, to find out if we're kind of talking about the same thing, and if we are, then perhaps many more of the listeners are actually doing this and don't even realize it already.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting. I think you've really nailed it. It is totally possible to go forward and backward in time once you get a handle on this. The problem is focusing your intent, deciding where you're going to go and going, and the confidence you can do it,
if you could just get souvenirs.
There's some places still I want to go and see, I'd like to go and hang out with, Archimedes for a day. That'd be kind of cool, but we are limited in a sense by our imagination, what is possible, and visualizing what we want to accomplish, then we can accomplish it.
All right, I'm just going to throw out something, an interesting thought. And I want to frame it so it maybe is a little bit politically correct, but I doubt it. You brought up Archimedes, and we were asked at one point in time, some class I was taking, if you could sit down and have dinner with anybody in the world that you found interesting, who would that be? And my comment was that I'd like to sit down with Moses because I'd really like to find out what happened on the top of that mountain.
Yeah,
that was my thought.
What's the real story? Yeah.
What's the real story? But what if somebody wants to go back and experience something that, like something from the Bible, they want to hang out with Jesus, but they're so programmed by what they've read that may or may not be true or slanted.
Yeah.
How is that going to affect them, their ability to perceive the reality of going into the past?
Well, it certainly colors things. What's the old formula? You have to conceive of it and perceive it and believe it and achieve it. I mean, if you leave any of the steps out, you're not going to get there. And most of us fail at so many things in our lives because we don't conceive it, we don't perceive it, we don't believe it, so we don't achieve it. I think it is a real problem. We're set up to think in a very limited fashion because we live in a very limited physical world. Change is very hard to come by in this physical world. And really, time is change. You can measure time by change. So you see how little change is possible in this world. You see how little control we have over time in this world. They are locked together.
Yeah, just like our time, we only
that too,
we only have like 2 minutes left.
Can't you stretch it out? Come on.
Wait, I'll concentrate.
Okay.
Is it working?
It's working for me, but yeah.
So if somebody wants to get more information about you and your work, or where can they get a copy of the book? Any information you'd like to share on that level?
Well, I did fill out the author profile and page on Amazon. So if you go to Amazon and look up my name or the book, you'll see the author information there, and have all coming events and things I'll be doing and places I'll be, and so they could check that out. Like this program today was listed there. And
so any big juicy events you're going to be speaking at?
Not so much. I have to paint my house so I can move, but I'm going to be signing books at the book fair in New York in June, and at INATS in Denver in June, and I'll be at the Upper Midwest Great Lakes Book Fair in August. So, I do have to paint the house. Paint the house, paint the house up and down. So, yeah.
Now, see, if we could only just do that in, compressed time. I'm just going to imagine I'm painting the house, and poof, in the future it's done. That's nice. I just find it hard to do that when I'm up the 40-foot ladder, but I'm working on it. Well, you can also go to the Inner Traditions, my publisher in Rochester, Vermont, and they've got some activities listed under, I think, a Facebook page they set up for me. Mm-hmm. I'm not so techno yet. Do you have a Facebook page?
Yes, it's a Facebook page.
So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, would that be an appropriate venue?
Sure.
Well, good.
Yeah.
All right. So I know our music is going to be coming up here pretty quick. Any last words you would like to share with the listeners before we have to go?
Yeah, it is that really time is energy, is opportunity, and is your karma. And what I found is that in learning to deal with time, one can become more in control of their life, get a better understanding of their life, and change is possible. I think there's healing opportunities and opportunities for growth through understanding time and space.
Great. Vaughn, thank you so much for coming on. This was way fun.
It was great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I will talk to you later. We'll have to become Facebook friends and go from there.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
That was Von Braschler. His book is 7 Secrets of Time Travel, Mystic Voyages of the Energy Body. Next week, we have Scott Cretan and Gary Osborne coming on talking about the Giza prophecy. So till next week, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. Be blessed. Wait, I screwed up.
Join host Dr. Rita Louise each week at this time for Just Energy Radio. Point your browser to www.justenergyradio.com for more show information and to contact Dr. Rita.